Good morning. Excuse me. I'll call to order the March 1st meeting of the Saline County Commission. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Shadwick?
Here.
Commissioner Sparks?
Here.
Commissioner Fredrickson?
Here.
Commissioner Weiss?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Present. Now, if we'd please stand for a flag salute and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now move into the citizens' input portion of the meeting, where citizens may speak on county government, usually limited to 3 minutes, on items that are not on our agenda. Anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to action items. I'm sorry, consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of approval of prior minutes as presented, approval of tax roll adjustments as presented, approval of disposition of property, approval of Atherton Vet Clinic Memorandum of Understanding, approval of RX Benefits Addendum to Administrative Services Agreement, approval of accounts payable as presented, approval of payroll as presented, and approval of the public forum agenda as presented. Any commissioners wish to address any of these?
Before I would vote for the consent agenda, I would like to have the memorandum of understanding with the veterinary clinic. Explain that a little bit. Someone can, I hope. We've never done anything like this before that I recall.
Yeah, we have Rosie here, so good timing.
Okay, this is part of our PET program. We were awarded $20,000 from Meals on Wheels America. So we're using those funds to offset some of our expenses that we're going to incur with Atherton Vet Clinic. He's providing all the food at his cost. So we came before you last month, and you approved the funding, and part of that was with the Atherton Vet Clinic. So now we put together the Memorandum of Understanding in front of you so that you could see exactly what we are doing with them. They're going to provide some well pet checks and food.
Now, is that for people that are on the Meals on Wheels?
Only for our people on Meals on Wheels program.
And you said there was $20,000
There's $20,000
that was allocated?
There's $20,000 that was allocated. We're using $7,000 of that with the Atherton Vet Clinic. The rest, we're putting into flyers and posters. We're building community partners, so we're just going to really promote this program. We're going to do a training with our volunteers. We're going to try to bring in new representatives that will help support this program in the future.
And the total amount to Atherton's is going to be $6,000?
I believe it was 7. Do you have them?
6 here, but.
Oh, okay, and it could very well be. We went back and forth on that, so.
Okay, I guess that's all I've got then.
Okay, any other questions of the commissioners?
Move for approval.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We got a pretty full agenda today, so I guess we'll jump right on into it if we can move into the action items.
Item 1, RFA 118-22, Employee Policies, with Marilyn Leamer, Human Resources Director.
Good morning, Marilyn.
Good morning, Commissioners. This request is for 4 policies. Two of those are new and 2 of them are revised. Policy 20.18 is the Performance Grievance Disciplinary Action and Appeal policy. We did add text that excluded probationary employees. There's still the opportunity for employees through an open door policy to request that, they just wouldn't go through the formal appeal policy for terminations. 30.06C, this is a new policy. There are certain positions within the county that are non-exempt that are required to be on standby. They are the ones that they must report when they get the phone call. The good example of those are the intake workers at community corrections, and then also home health RN nurses. Those are the two most common ones. If approved, these positions would be provided $2 per hour for each hour they are required to serve in a standby status during the weekdays. On weekends, it would be $3 per hour when they're required to serve on standby on a weekend or a holiday. The time frames are estimated to be anywhere from 15 to 24 hours. Standby requires the employee to report, while other statuses that may be called in, they are not necessarily required to come in. For instance, if I'm thinking of the sheriff's office, maybe a corrections officer, they need somebody to come in, they probably start calling, but the employee is not necessarily required to come in. There would be one other policy that we would have to slightly revise if this policy is approved at a later date. 40.12, outside employment. This continues to require county administrator approval, and we did add a designee for the department heads that are seeking outside employment. The same rules would apply for any other employee that's seeking outside employment. There can't be any kind of a conflict of interest. It also allows for department heads that can appeal to the county commissioners. And then the final one is 4.56, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services mandatory vaccination policy. This federal mandate only applies to home health agencies, not other positions within the county. The alternatives for action are to approve the policies as presented, do not approve the policies as presented, or direct staff to make further revisions and present at a later date. Our recommendation is to approve the policies as presented. The budget impact for this, there's no additional impact for policies 20.18, 40.12, or 40.56. There is a financial impact for 30.06C, and that would come out of the department's existing budget. If approved, two departments commonly fall within this, as I mentioned earlier, which would be community corrections for intake and then home health nurses. Community corrections already currently budgets for a stipend for their standby workers, which is grant funded. And then the health department's home health agency nurses would be able to fund for 2022 with the current vacancy dollars that they have right now. There are a couple vacancies, so they would have funding available, nothing additional. A weekday employee would be paid approximately $30 for overnight to be on standby. And then for the weekend standby workers, a little bit more since they are on 24-hour standby. That would be approximately $144 to be on standby for the full weekend. Each department would need to budget approximately $7,800 for weekday standby and approximately $7,488 for weekend standby, or a total of about $15,288 annually. And I'm available for questions.
I have one question concerning Road and Bridge. When they have a weather impending, are they put on standby?
Not always. It could be a situation where Darren could say, okay, I'm not sure what time I'm going to call you in, but I am going to call you in. So that situation could fall into it. It's just
And
the more
they're-
common ones is intake.
And they're
RN.
required when called to report?
They have to show up, yes, yes.
Okay, and the crew that does the signage, if they need barricades or something like that, are they on standby or are they just calling if available?
When they get the call, one of them would report, and it's probably better for Darren to confirm this. They do get paid from the time they get the phone call. And they're also paid a minimum of 2 hours of overtime. So for instance, if they ran out and put up a sign, and this probably isn't realistic, but if they only took 30 minutes, they are paid for a minimum of 2 hours of overtime for that.
Okay, but this, this doesn't impact Road and Bridge for, there's,
It possibly could if Darren placed somebody in a standby status, where you're just waiting, you know, these are the people that are sitting there waiting and they have to jump into action at the time. where in the situation that you brought up with the signage, if one person couldn't do it, maybe somebody else could, or maybe somebody else could. It isn't necessarily that this person has to.
Okay. I was just going to tell you, does most of these people in these departments that are filling this, when they're hired, do they realize that they could be, or you have 5 people and one weekend a month you are put on standby?
They are told up front that this position is subject to callback, especially with the 2 that are most common here. So they are aware of that. Right now, we do not have any kind of a standby pay. They fall under that minimum 2 hours.
Gotcha, okay.
Marilyn, the very last one you spoke of, the mandatory vaccination policy, and that is covered with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Yes.
What would prompt, if they change their policy, would you come back to us then, or does that just automatically cease? Or how would we handle that?
We would come back and rescind that if for some reason that mandate was rescinded,
And that would take county commission approval to just change the policy?
just to eliminate that policy.
And I assume that we would do that immediately if we should
Right.
learn of something like that?
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions of Marilyn? Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the policies as presented.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 118-22 employee policies. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 2.
RFA 119-22, Resolution 22-2359, Rural Fire District Number 5, Board of Trustee appointment with Michelle Barkley, Emergency Management Director.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Commission. I am here on behalf of Rural Fire District 5 to request the approval of Kenton Dreiling to their Board of Trustees. Back in January of '22, their former Board of Trustees Chair, David Griffith, resigned from his position. Kenton would essentially be filling the remainder timeframe that David Griffith was to serve. So if approved, Kenton will start 3/1 of '22 through 12/31 of '23. After that, it would be up to the Board of Trustees to decide whether they wanted to reappoint Kenton or not. Staff recommends the appointment of Kenton Dreiling to allow for a 9th member to serve on the board. As you can see to the attached expression of interest form, Mr. Dreiling is eager to serve his community and be a part of his fire district.
All right, questions of Michelle?
Michelle, I was just looking at the addresses that are here. On the rural fire department, do most of them live in the rural area, or do they live in the city, or do you know?
Just depends. Some of them that live in the city work for and volunteer for 5, 7, 2. I know some that volunteer for 6 and 3 also. It just depends. There's no residential requirement.
I didn't think there was. I'm just curious as, response time when someone lives somewhere in the city and the response is out in the district, and because it's from where he lives, it's probably 10 minutes or so just to the station.
Sure,
So
but at
just
this point,
just
with the
curiosity.
rate of volunteers, I don't think they're going to turn anybody away.
Anyone else with question? Nope. Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I would entertain action.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt Resolution 22-2359, appointing Kenton Dreiling to RFD Number 5 Board of Trustees for a term to expire December 31st, 2023.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 119-22, Resolution 22-2359, RFD Number 5, Board of Trustee appointment. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Item number 3.
RFA 116-22, Resolution 22-2358, Department of Senior Services Advisory Council Member Appointment with Rosie Walter, Department of Senior Services Director.
Good morning, Rosie.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We are asking approval to adopt Resolution 22-2358 to appoint Shannon Anaya to the Advisory Council as recommended by our Advisory Council. Randy Helis is no longer able to serve on the council. Shannon Anaya would serve the remainder of Randy's term. The term expires January 2024. Shannon will have the opportunity to serve another 3-year term upon that expiration. Alternatives for action: adopt the resolution 22-2358 and approve Shannon to serve the remainder of Randy's term to expire January 2024, or suggest another council member. Staff recommendation is to approve Shannon. The budget impact, if Commission approved, there is no budget impact. Services and staffing will be maintained at full expectation.
One thing that's attending the advisory board, I was able to see the letters of interest, but it's not in the packet for the other commissioners. I think sometimes they enjoy, unless they've already seen
We
it.
did a study session 2 weeks ago where we reviewed with you,
Okay.
the
I
people.
stand corrected.
You're fine.
All right. Any comments from commissioners? Comments from the public? Seeing none, I will turn it back to the commissioners for possible action.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt Resolution 22-2358, appointing Shannon Anaya to the Advisory Council for a term to expire January 31st, 2024.
Second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 116-22, Resolution 22-2358, Department of Senior Services Advisory Council member appointment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 4.
RFA 117-22, bid award for Meals on Wheels drive-thru and storage building with Rosie Walter, Department of Senior Services Director.
Good morning again, Rosie.
Good morning. We are requesting Commission approval to accept the low bid from Lancaster Construction for $107,948.40 for the Meals on Wheels drive-thru, and to reject the bid for the repairs of the storage building in order to allow time to consider alternative options. 2 construction companies bid on the Meals on Wheels drive-thru, and one was received to repair the storage building. The Meals on Wheels drive-thru, the alternate one was to construct the canopy, but due to the cost of that, staff is not recommending this alternative. The second alternative was to do asphalt in lieu of concrete. Staff also requests that the cement be used instead of asphalt to maintain the longevity of the drive-thru and for their cost savings. The Meals on Wheels drive-thru will eliminate congestion in the parking lot. Currently, volunteers attempt to find a parking spot behind parked cars so they can quickly come in and pick up meals to deliver. This is causing an issue with other cars trying to leave or just to get through the parking lot. A new drive-thru will allow volunteers to go right over to the south doors, pick up their heavy bags, pack them up real quick, and it also is going to allow easy access for any freight from the kitchen, milk, food, all of that. The next thing is the repair of the storage building. The storage building is the old boiler house of the senior center. It is a solid brick building with 232 square feet, or 464 including the basement. The basement houses the old boilers that historically heated the building. The boilers have asbestos crumbling off of them and will need to be abated. The storage building has been declared unsafe by Johnny Adam, the architect. The floor has dropped in several areas due to the leaking roof, and the stairs are no longer usable. Currently, we have a storage pod that's sitting in our parking lot so that we could put all of our lawn equipment, the medical equipment that we use, that we loan out to people in need, and our recycling is now sitting behind the trash dumpster. One bid was received from Ponton Construction to repair the storage building in the amount of $157,354, which was well above the budgeted estimates and projected cost by the architect. Staff requests that Commission reject the bid to allow additional time to review specifications and look at alternatives. The department has begun to look for alternatives, preliminary estimates with Johnny Adam, our architect, on this project. Some of the options are listed: the demo of the building and build a new stick building, $47,800. Demo and bring in a fabricated building, like a Morton building, $28,080. Demo building and use the juvenile detention center or the sheriff's office space when they remove it, $10,000 to demo the building. Repair the building in stages and start this year with the roof and the floor to protect the building from further damage, and then to repair with grant funding as we continue to apply and receive. An estimate right now, $15,000 just for the roof and the floor. The alternatives for action: reject all the bids, approve the bid from Lancaster Construction for $107,948.40 to construct the Meals on Wheels drive-thru, and reject the bid for repairs to the storage building. Staff recommendation is to approve the low bid from Lancaster Construction for $107,948.40 and reject bids on repair to the storage building. The budget impact: all Meals on Wheels drive-thru and repair of the storage building expenses will be paid from foundation grants received, Saline County CIP funds, and private donors. The Commission accepted bid or funding award of $182,500 in foundation grants, funding to tuck and point the building, build the Meals on Wheels drive-thru, install new windows, and repair the storage building. Currently, the funding with the foundations and the donations were at $232,500. Right now, we have committed or spent $76,202.21, leaving a balance of $156,297.79. Additionally, we have $120,018.5 was approved in the 2021 CIP for the Meals on Wheels drive-thru and repairs to the storage building that can be used in these projects in conjunction with grant and donation funds. Questions?
Yes. Questions? Alternate number 2, it says asphalt in lieu of concrete, that the asphalt provides asphalt in lieu of concrete provides cost savings.
Well, and the reason I say that is because when it rains in our current parking lot, that is asphalt, it deteriorates. It freezes, it wears down with use. We just want to build something that's going to stay.
But on the bid tabulation, it's got $2,093 added for asphalt in lieu
I
of
know,
concrete.
that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking you.
Well, and then if you look at Ponton, I mean, they're less. They're at $92,376.40. You know, if you use the asphalt, that I get, but Lancaster is $2,093 more.
I mean, I'll ask construction people if there are any out there. Darren, I was under the impression that cement was much more expensive than asphalt.
I'm going to make an assumption here. Lancaster's basically a concrete construction company, and they would probably have to sub out the asphalt work.
Okay.
That would be, could be the difference in the price.
To me, then, we need to use concrete. That would be but I'm a little unclear on that. Also, have we applied for a permit from the city to undertake this?
We've actually spoke with them, so it's undergoing right now. We wanted to make sure before we even applied that that would be okay. And we've not done the formal paperwork, but yes.
I would be hesitant on that, simply because if it hasn't been taken to the planning commission itself, I mean, for someone to say that, no problem, because they're going to have to cut a curb, I assume.
Right.
Also, what about, have you allowed for the semi-trucks and things like that that would have to come through there and make a turn?
Yes. And I actually brought Johnny today, so if you had any specific questions that I couldn't answer, that he could, our architect.
Okay.
My real question is this concrete versus asphalt? And I'm not clear as to what you're asking or what the cheapest one is.
Well, concrete, the cheapest bid is from Lancaster Construction at $107,948 and 40. The other is the asphalt. The cheapest would be $92,376 and 40. So if you go with the asphalt, Ponton would be the cheapest, but staff is recommending that we use concrete.
Would that go against our purchasing policy?
It's an alternate. I don't think we can step aside because of that being an alternate, couldn't we?
Yeah, yes. I mean, it was bid out both ways, so could accept either one.
Don't misinterpret me. I'm in favor of this construction project. I want it to go through. We need it, and I understand that. But I'm really hesitant to award a bid when we don't have the permits in hand.
Okay, I mean, we will definitely work on that next, but we have met with them. We don't foresee that is a problem. I hear what you're saying.
A couple questions. What's the width of this drive?
Morning, I'm John Adam with A+ Architects. I'm the architect. And the width is about 25 feet, and it's angled such that we can get an 18-wheeler to definitely come in from the west side and make that turn. Our driving factors was the existing water well and one of the lamp posts that's at the street. That's how we got that angle, but I did all kinds of studies to make sure that we can get an 18-wheeler through there safely.
Are you entering through the parking lot then? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Right now, well, it can go either way, but right now, they do come in through the parking lot and then park right in the middle, but they can come either way, so they have that option.
I would assume that you'd make it a one-way at some point in time to...
Yeah, it's wide enough to make it where you could have parking and actually still utilize it, so when Meals on Wheels folks are getting their meals, others could be driving right by them.
Is the entrance off of this coming off the side street or off of 9th Street?
Off of the Park Street.
Okay. How close to the curb? Pretty close to the curb?
Well, it's,
I mean,
we're just taking 2 parking spaces off of Park Street, and then that's where we'll do our curb cut.
Okay.
But again, that lamp post and the water well is our driving factor.
Gotcha. So it'll go up and be a pretty sharp?
It's not real sharp.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like a 45-degree angle or anything like that. It's the angles so that the trucks could actually maneuver. It's going to be, the truck drivers got to know what they're doing, which most of them do.
And come in from the south, coming that way, where they can go in and go like that instead of
Absolutely.
making a turn like this to go in. Yeah,
Yep.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm in favor of the project, but I'll tell you, I'm really reluctant to bid for a bid award when we don't have the permits.
Yeah, a lot of times with construction, the contractor gets the permits through the city, and then that process starts that way, as opposed to trying to get permits for something that may or may not even get built. The city will go through and do a review process. If they want some clarification or some notes changed or some redesign, that's where I will do that. And did you have any other questions about the concrete?
I mean, it will be,
Yeah,
I
it's-
mean, we'll have reinforcement wire
Absolutely.
or
It's-
stuff
it's-
in it?
It's
to
8-inch
support? Okay, gee,
concrete,
yep.
reinforcing. It's all going to be curb and gutter, even if you went with the alternate with asphalt, which if you think about the longevity of the concrete versus the maintenance that you're going to have with the asphalt, you're going to save money doing concrete. I was actually surprised about the price on the concrete, because even my estimate, I was about 12,000 below using the asphalt in lieu of concrete. So we're actually pretty good shape.
So in other words, on this RFA, it says asphalt in lieu of concrete, and that is just a statement. And then it goes on to say staff requests that cement be used instead of asphalt. So should we use asphalt or should we use concrete? That's what that meant. I assume that's what that means when it says asphalt in lieu of concrete.
We're definitely asking for concrete.
Yeah, the base bid was to use concrete.
Okay.
And we felt that if the price was going to be too high, we wanted to have an alternate, just say, okay, if we can't do the concrete, we'll go back to the asphalt, keep it within a certain budget.
So that $2,093 that's on here for an add-on,
Yeah, and I didn't.
Doesn't get
understand-
added
I didn't
on.
understand that either.
well, I'm still going to stick to my guns. I think it's hard for me to approve this without the permits. I'm for the project, don't get me wrong, and we can approve it pretty quickly once we have permits, but I'm leery of that and the costs that might be associated with changes that the planning commission would make.
I don't mind having.
That's just me. I mean, there's
meetings and
4
stuff
others
with
to
the
vote.
city, and I could go ahead and do the permit processing in lieu of a contractor to do it, but contractor also has that in his bid to do all that permitting.
On a side note, I'm going to say that we're working with a time frame where the contractors are asking for approval as quickly as possible because they have to order it from their supplies to lock in prices.
But again, without a permit, that's just me.
The contractors hopefully, it's in the bid for them to seek that.
This is a much-needed improvement, and I would sure like to go ahead and get the process started.
Thank you.
Any other comments? While we have you up there, on the building, which was part of this original, you have where it could be done in portions, and 15,000 would do the roof and floor, but the total bid for their project was 150. Some scary amount, I
Right.
forget exactly.
Well,
but
if we did it in phases, and I'm just basically going off of my estimate. My estimate was about 107,000, I believe, and Ponton's was quite a bit more, and I think that fluctuation for the wood materials is why it went up, because I know wood materials are changing weekly, and they went up like 44%. They came down a little bit, and now they're back up again. So contractors can't guarantee, and the roof and the floors all wood. But based off my estimate, $16,000 would get the roof so we can dry it in, and then floor so we can get it safe. And then the next phase could be doors and windows, and then last phase maybe repointing. And at some point doing the trash enclosure.
Recycling.
I was just trying to figure out what the expensive part of that process was.
Tuck pointing is around $18,000, $20,000.
Here's your original.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another, on this building here, so what we're saying is that pretty much for $10,000, we can demo that building and take out that boiler from the basement and with all the asbestos and everything on it, to get rid of all that whole space there for $10,000.
Well, that's probably on the low side,
Okay, but
because you're going to have to get it all out of there, haul it away, and then you're going to have to come back. You can't implode it and just bury it all, and then,
sure,
I don't think the city will allow it.
Oh, well.
And plus, if you cover it, there's going to be voids and
Yeah.
stuff, because it's always going to be settling, so that'll always be an issue. But to come back and put dirt and sand and compact it properly, it could go up a lot more.
okay. Is that something that we would maybe possibly look at, if down the road that we did look at using the juvenile detention center for, right across the street for some storage facility there, and then taking all that and utilizing that as all parking, more as parking space over there?
I do like that.
I'm just going as like,
Yeah, you'd probably gain three additional parking spaces, 4 maybe.
Well, and then if we got that lot, yeah.
but anyway, that's just another thought, okay. But let's go this route.
All right, any more questions from the commissioners? Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commissioners for possible action.
Mr. Chairman, I move we award the bid to construct the Meals on Wheels drive-through to Lancaster Construction and reject all bids for the repairs to the storage building.
Second the motion.
Been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 117-22 bid awards for Meals on Wheels drive-through and storage building.
And
Now,
reject the bids.
let's clarify that. That storage building,
We're going to
your request was that we
reject those bids.
reject those bids.
Yes.
And that's what we're voting on. All right. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Nay?
The motion carries 4-1. Thank you for your
you.
time, and Rosie, it's
Thank you.
good seeing you again.
Thank you.
We're at item number 5.
RFA 120-22, the dump truck purchase with Darren Fischel, Road and Bridge Administrator.
Morning, Darren.
Good morning, Commissioners. This request for action is to purchase a new 2022 Freightliner salt sand spreader dump truck with a snowplow. The purchase would be made using Saline County's Policy 40.32, exceptions to competitive bidding, which states competitive bid proposal may be waived when purchases are made in cooperation with other city, county, state, or federal agencies, and it is deemed to be in the best interest of the county to purchase supplies, services, and equipment from contracts and agreements from other governmental agencies. Sourcewell meets the criteria for governmental contracts. The alternatives for action would be to approve the purchase of the 2022 Freightliner salt sand spreader dump truck with snowplow from Truck Center Companies, Salina, Kansas, in the amount of $202,855. Number 2 is to reject the purchase and direct staff to let bids for a dump truck. 3, reject the purchase and direct staff to an alternative solution. Staff recommends the purchase of the Freightliner salt sand spreader dump truck with snowplow. We currently have a 2007 Kenworth that has low oil pressure and considerable oil blowback on the motor. It is in need of an engine overhaul, and the price of the overhaul is $31,537.66. Considering the truck has 317,261 miles and 10,713 hours, we feel due to the rough service of these vehicles, the rest of the truck is also worn out, and it would be cheaper in the long run to dispose of this vehicle by either offering it to another department and or selling it on Purple Wave auction. The purchase of this vehicle would increase our snow and ice control fleet by 1 truck. The current Kenworth dump truck is not utilized for snow removal. The frame is not heavy enough to accommodate a plow. The delivery is scheduled for June of 2022. The vehicle was ordered by the dealer in 2021 and is the last of a block that they purchased. The budget impact, the current unencumbered balance of the capital outlay account is $212,161.30. This will leave a balance of $9,306.30.
At this time, Darren, how many salt trucks do we have? I mean, these dump trucks do we have in service?
7 for salt sand spreaders.
Okay. Was it, and I'm trying to recollect, and I tried to go through my paperwork, but didn't we just get a used one just not very long ago?
I think in 2016, we purchased 2 state used trucks.
Oh, okay, just not in the last.
Right.
Okay.
The last dump truck salt sand spreader was in
Okay.
2019.
Darren, could you explain Sourcewell to us?
Sourcewell is an agency that, it's out of Minnesota, and they are a government contract. They go out to all of the dealers, or the vendors, say, and they negotiate the lowest price for governmental agencies. So if they go out and say, okay, here's a truck or a piece of equipment, what will you sell it to us for? What's your lowest price? And then they offer it to governmental agencies at that price.
Thanks for clarifying that. And delivery date?
Delivery date is June of 2022, and looking over my paperwork, it's actually a 2023 truck, and it already has a VIN number, so it is scheduled to be built.
Very good. And what color is it?
It's white.
No more questions. Thank you.
Darren, will this have the stainless steel bed
Excuse me?
or aluminum bed?
Yeah, it will have a stainless steel
Stainless
bed.
steel,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Any other questions of the commissioners? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'd entertain action.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the purchase of the 2022 Freightliner as presented in RFA number 120-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve RFA 120-22 dump truck purchase. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Item number 6.
RFA 121-22, additional programs for ARPA funding with Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. So, just about a year ago, in March of 2021, the U.S. Congress passed and President signed the American Rescue Plan Act, which is one of the stimulus packages that Congress did in response to the COVID pandemic. And the ARPA, as it's popularly known, provides funding to each of the counties across the United States. And in the case of Saline County, provides us with a total of $10,532,376 spread across 2 years. We received half of that amount last summer and anticipate receiving the remaining amount in late May or early June of this year. Your commission has taken steps to go ahead and make a plan for how to spend that funding. And so today I wanted to just update you on where we are with that plan, bring some specific requests, and talk about the plan for the next phase of funding. So it's a long and complicated report, but Lauren, if you go to the next slide, there are basically three yeah, that's stuff I already talked about. Let's go one more, thank you. So there are basically three things that are requested today. There are requests that fall within the existing framework for Phase 1. There are requests that would change the framework for Phase 1. And then there are requests that have to do with the planning for Phase 2. So next slide, please. Within Phase 1 of the existing framework, there are really 3 requests. The first of those, which we talked about a little bit previously but didn't have all the paperwork in hand at the time, would be a further workforce development project with Kansas State University Salina College of Aerospace and Technology to provide airframe certification on an accelerated basis to 10 individuals. That would directly benefit local industry in this area and would draw upon K-State Salina's expertise in this area. The recommended award for that program is $133,650. Then there are 2 requests that enhance other requests that you have previously approved. You previously approved award of $150,000 to Kansas Wesleyan University to provide bachelor's level coursework to public safety officers with Salina PD and the Saline County Sheriff's Office. As you were considering that, the Salina Police Chief spoke before you and pointed out that the request did not include books and requested that we reconsider that. Now that we have the proposal from K-State Salina and we have a firm dollar amount on that, there is enough money left in the workforce development allocation to go back and do that. So the second request is to add that $30,000 into the previous preliminary award to Kansas Wesleyan. That would bring the total award request there to $180,000. And the third request is also something that you have previously approved, which is subscriptions to Cope Notes, the text messaging service that's designed to support mental health in the community. You previously approved 200 subscriptions to that service in the amount of $23,976, and those went like hotcakes. Within a week of announcing, actually about half a week of announcing their availability to the public, they were all claimed and spoken for. So this request is to do an additional 100 subscriptions in the amount of $11,988. So those are the 3 requests that fit within the existing Phase 1 framework. Next slide, please, Lauren. In addition to that, we're requesting some changes to the framework. First and foremost, we did reserve $500,000 within Phase 1 of the framework for future opportunities. And one of the things that was discussed in the category of future opportunities was the idea of premium pay for public sector employees, which was something that was contemplated under ARPA. But at the time, we were operating under a set of Treasury guidelines that had some fairly restrictive guidance for what was considered premium pay. So we just sort of punted that decision to the future. Well, the future is now, because on January 6th of 2022, the Treasury came out with revised guidance, which will permit us to allocate more of our funding to typical government services, which includes, of course, paying our employees. And so that in turn expands the definition of what we can do for our employees. It would cost us about $550,000 to provide an inflation adjustment payment to county employees this summer. The inflation adjustment payment would be equal to 2.9% of employees' current salaries. Why was that number picked? Because most county employees for this year received a 3% general we don't call it a COLA, but that's essentially a general salary increase in the amount of 3%. The rate of inflation, as we all know, is higher than 3%, and Social Security recipients this year received a 5.9% adjustment. So 5.9 minus 3 is the 2.9% recommendation. As I said, that would be about $550,000 to do that for our employees. That would be funded from the $500,000 reserve for the future, but we would need to come up with another $50,000. That is recommended to come from the business support category. Why are we recommending that? Well, one, there's a little bit of funding left over there. But two, we believe we may be able to pull back some funding that you had previously awarded to the Saline Airport Authority because the flight to Houston has just simply not come to fruition yet. And that would actually add back more than we're recommending to take away from that category. The second change would be to cover the deficit in the water wastewater grants. We allocated $500,000 to water and wastewater grants. We had a really robust response to our solicitation for grant proposals from rural water districts, small cities, and so you actually awarded $517,026. I'm rounding up. It was $2,570, I believe. And so in order to make everything whole, we would take some remaining money from business recovery, workforce development, and public health to zero that account out, and then move the remaining funds in the Phase 1 business recovery after that $50,000 for the inflation adjustment payment to our criminal justice and public safety account. And the reason for that is that we have completed a needs assessment for public safety and criminal justice programs under ARPA and believe that there is going to be, like there was with wastewater, a stronger showing there. We have about $250,000 currently allocated. This would boost that up by another $199,000. Anticipate having those program recommendations to you later this month. And then, as I said, there is the potential to bring back some of the money from the previously allocated airport support. So next slide, Lauren. So then, if the commission agrees to those things, the allocation of those three programs within the existing Phase 1 of the framework and the changes to the framework, as I have just outlined, that would essentially, that plus the criminal justice stuff coming later this month, would essentially complete Phase 1. So we are ready to start planning for Phase 2, which is the next $5.28 million. So there are a number of concepts listed in the staff report for today that we have talked about as possibilities. So I would be open to any commission feedback on any of those. They are just sort of thoughts at this point, where we are intending on going, and the dollar amounts are all tentative. There are two items, however, that we would like approval to go ahead and move forward on today, just because we would need to be prepared to actually spend money when we get it in late May, early June. And those are, first off, to allow me to appoint a task force on broadband infrastructure in the county. And the reason that that is recommended is because there are a lot of broadband programs coming out from the state and from some federal programs. And what we are finding out is that most of the other communities have more defined plans than what we have had to this point in Saline County. And so we would like to get some folks who have actual knowledge of the situation in mainly the rural parts of the county, but also some underserved parts of the city of Salina, convene them and talk about how we could most effectively utilize those funds. And the second recommendation is to advertise for a potential master's level internship with the county administrator's office. That would help to free up some time for myself and the deputy county administrator by moving some of this workload on to a new individual in order to help us focus on other major projects that are going on at the moment. And the reason that that is appropriate to come from the ARPA funding, which is one-time in nature, is that this would be a term-limited position. Master's programs that focus on local government are used to having students placed in 1 to 2 year internships. And so this would not be a continuing expense. We have identified a potential location. As you know, space is somewhat constrained in our office, but we've identified a potential location for the person to actually sit. But we are frankly a little bit, it's March 1, we are frankly a little bit late to the internship game for students who are coming out of their master's programs in May of this year. So would like to get that out as soon as possible if the commission thinks that that's a decent idea. So that is the overview of what is recommended today. Again, 3 programs within the existing framework, changes to conform the framework to where we see going, and then just authorization to go ahead and move forward with these 2 specific programs, as well as any feedback you have on the other suggestions. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a quick question here, Mr. Administrator, is on the used for employee inflation adjustment, the $550,000 roughly. Is that a one-time deal, or is that like you're increasing their salaries by this amount of money and it will be added on every year after that?
No, sir, that is a one-time adjustment.
Okay.
Just to deal with the specific inflationary pressures that folks are under. You know, there's a lot of speculation at the Federal Reserve level, and, you know, pundits that you see on news. Is inflation just a short-term problem? Is it a longer-term problem? So yes, we understand that it would not be appropriate to do an ongoing raise out of ARPA, which is one-time money. So this would just be a one-time shot in the arm, if you will, for employees to help them deal with current inflation. And then we would be talking, of course, about any other raises as we move into the 23 budget process.
Thank you.
Based on Roger's question, we're going to walk on toes here one way or another, no matter which way we go. And I assume that you're, with the 2.9%, if calculated out, that's what comes to the $550,000. And the person making $100,000 is going to get a $2,900 bonus, if you will, or a stipend, or whatever you want to call it. The person making $50,000 gets half of that. That's the proposal as I understand it. Someone making less than $50,000 obviously is going to get more than that. I would rather see it, and this is where I'm walking on toes, I would rather see that $550,000 divided equally among all the employees. That is the way I would like to see the money distributed. I'm in favor of the 2.9%. I'm in favor of the $550,000. I'm just not in favor of rewarding the highly compensated even more. And that's my speech.
Question on the broadband infrastructure.
Yes, sir.
You have a $500,000 allotted there.
Yeah, that's what's currently in the framework. And we know that broadband infrastructure is very expensive. We had always planned that that would really be seed money to match other grants, and that's why I think it's important to convene a task force, is to start talking about, okay, what are those highest priorities?
Is there any expense to the task force? I mean, will there be expenses?
That's a great question. I don't anticipate that there would be, I would think that the task force would probably meet here on site. Maybe we buy them donuts at some point, but I think any expenses would be pretty minimal. I don't anticipate that there being, trips to Topeka or anything like that.
All right, I guess I need to look and see how this is. We are just, what's being requested is that we approve the programs. How those programs are dealt with, as far as Commissioner Vidrickson's concerns, and if they vary or something, all of that will be to be determined as long as the program itself is approved. Am I right, or do we need to have specifics on that?
So I'll just go through them sort of one by one. For the proposal with K-State Salina, that would be a preliminary award, just like we did previously with Kansas Wesleyan and Salina Area Tech. That would come back to you as an actual grant agreement, likely on the consent calendar at some point in the future. For Kansas Wesleyan, that would be, we haven't finalized their grant agreement yet. We're still, the attorneys are still talking. So that would just be a change to that. It would come back to you one time, but it would be at the 180 level rather than the 150 level. But those would both come back, like I said, likely on the consent calendar. For the COPE notes, that would just be a purchase order, so that would not actually come back to the commission. If you approve that one, we would just take care of that at the staff level for that additional $11,988. For the staff inflation adjustment payment, I would say either way. We are targeting that for July. The reason for that being it's sort of the middle of the year, and there's already a negotiated amount that's going out to some employees in July. So we're targeting just doing this all at one time to minimize the impact on payroll. If you approve that today, if it's the will of the majority of the commission, we could go ahead and just do that. If you would like us to come back with additional options, we can certainly do that. I have no problem with doing a follow-up presentation on that to talk about additional options. For the other adjustments to the framework, those would not really come back to you because we're just sort of fiddling with accounting stuff. And then for the two recommendations on future programs for the appointment of the task force, I'm asking for authority for me to just go ahead and pick those people, so that wouldn't come back. And then for advertising, that would just be part of our normal HR process.
I would guess, I think we're almost in the majority here to approve everything that you've just stated. The only question being, as we've discussed, the distribution of the $550,000. And I don't know, it seems like we could probably decide that here and now, I would think, among the commissioners. Now, I'll leave that to my other commissioners, but you know where I stand on it, so.
I'm in favor of doing the employee inflation adjustments as presented. Otherwise, it's just
Meaning that you're in favor of the opposite of equal distribution?
correct.
To meet, in my mind, to meet the true inflation cost, to call it an inflation modifier or whatever, it should be done as a percentage. I know that impacts different employees in different ways, but that's a true true tell of how inflation hits everyone's pocketbook. So I like the way it's proposed as a 2.9 across the board. But I'm one vote.
I'm ready for the question, Mr. Chair.
Well, we haven't heard from the other two.
I have no comment.
You have no comment?
Nope.
All right, I'll ask for the question.
Public comment first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Possibly.
Thank you. Any public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the programs as outlined in RFA 12122.
Second the motion.
Okay, do we need any clarification of what we're actually voting on here?
Sounds to me like the administrator's already done that.
Okay.
And the 2.9% will be allocated in the form of a one-time payment to each individual based on his current employment rate, and he will get 2.9% of that. Correct? Am I understating, overstating, wrongly stating?
As I understand the motion, that would be what's being approved. I'm certainly open to additional discussion if the commission so chooses.
All right, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of RFA 121-22, additional programs for ARPA funding, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
All right, the motion carries 4-1. Looks like we're moving into informational items. Item number 1.
Establishing costs for maintenance of Kansas Department of Corrections inmates with Sheriff Roger Sultan.
Morning, Sheriff.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So this is kind of an odd request. I don't even have a request. I just need to have it on the minutes of the meeting that we discussed it. The Secretary of Corrections is required to pay us or reimburse the county for the expense of inmates that are held on parole violations. So these are the inmates that went to prison, got out on parole, and somehow violated that parole. For the time that they spend in our custody on parole violations, we get reimbursed for that amount. In 2020 and 2021, it's kind of unusual, but both years we had 1,688 days of inmates being in custody for parole violations. And the rate that they'd been paying us was $48.30 a day for that time. That's been $48.30 a day since 2010 that I'm aware of, and possibly before that. To establish a rate for 2021, they actually paid us for the first 6 months of 2021, and then they wanted to know what our rate was going to be, so that's why I'm here today. So they haven't paid us anything for the second half of 2021 yet. The rate that that we've established was the amount we actually spent in the jail budget for 2021, divided by the number of inmate days to come up with a rate of $61.23 a day. So that's the letter I'm going to send the Department of Corrections, is our rate is $61.23 a day. It's our actual cost, at least for 2021, as near as I can figure it, doing some basic math. And that's why I'm here, is just to get that information on the record, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
How does that compare to the amount that we pay other jails for housing our inmates?
It's about twice the rate. We pay $35 a day.
Maybe I should be quiet then from here. I mean, I don't get it.
Well, the reason that those jails can do that is their lights are on. They've already paid the staff to be there. So all that really costs them for our inmates to be there is meals. Because any medical expenses is sent back to us to pay. You know, anyone with major medical, we keep here anyway in-house and take care of that, so.
And why does that not apply in reverse, Roger?
We have all the bills.
Okay. I mean, I'm for
It's kind of like, I guess the easiest way for me to put it to you would be if your cousin from out of town comes and stays in your house, it does cost you a little bit more, but you and your wife already had the lights on and the mortgage payment and everything. It's just an extra person in your house that doesn't cost you as much. They had to pay that amount whether those beds were occupied, so any little bit they get on top of that's good. And I'm not saying that if the counties came to us and said they wanted more, there's not much we can do. We're kind of at their mercy. That's been the problem all along with this.
Are you establishing rates for 2022, or is this for 2021?
For 21, they wanted the rate established for July 1st, 2021.
So we've already housed the inmates, and now they're asking, what's this going to cost us?
Yeah. They just need a rate established. That's all I had.
So the $61.20 is the exact amount that it cost us? Is it?
Per inmate day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not, no profit on top or anything like that?
Nope, nothing over. There's no extra taking advantage of the state or anything. That was the amount of money that we paid as a whole per day, per inmate, 2021.
That sounds like we're giving them a fair deal.
Fair enough. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was different. We go to item number 1B, I guess.
Item 2, Road and Bridge update with Darren Fischel, Road and Bridge Administrator.
Good morning again, Commissioners. This is our bi-monthly update for January, February. I would like to mention we sent 8 employees to LTAP training. LTAP stands for Licensed Technical Assistance Program in Manhattan for asphalt maintenance and repair. Also, I'd like to add, we are holding 2 LTAP classes at our facility this month. So now that the COVID's starting, we are able to use that facility to do training for the whole area. We responded to 3 snow and ice events. If you look at the picture here, we did receive the Volvo excavator that the commission approved several weeks ago. It's been a very good machine. The people operating say they really like it. It's been a great benefit to them. Because of the weather, we've doing trash pickup countywide. Next slide, please. And we're doing our tree clearing and trimming sites at 16 sites. North of town on Old 81, there's a development called Shady Grove. This is just an area where we went in, the trees were, we used our cutting head here, the trees were topping over the road. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This shows just a before of a corner area, you know, very site restricted. Next slide, please. So now you could see vehicles coming around the corner. We did do some signage there after this picture was taken to delineate that curve. Next slide, please. This is Stimmel Road, just east of Simpson Road. The trees coming out on the road, making it difficult to maintain. Next slide, please. So we were able to reestablish the ditch and actually be able to mow that now. Next slide, please. This is Headville, just north of Parsons. This abuts the bombing range. And they had trees growing along here, and they had wanted to build a new fence. So we partnered with them to remove some of these trees. Next slide, please. So now their fence is probably going to be about 20 foot off the edge of the roadway, and we were able to get in there with the motor grader and do what they call a layback. When I talk about laybacks, that's just simply take the dirt out of the ditch with the motor grader and move it out into the field. Very efficient way of doing ditch cleaning. Next slide, please. This is the intersection of Fallen and Burma Road. Very site-limited intersection. You would almost actually have to pull out into the intersection before you would be able to look north. The property owner was very gracious there and allowed us to remove some of that to improve the safety of that intersection. Next slide, please. This is the miles of roadway during the last 2 months that our motor grader operators have maintained. That was about 1,631 miles. And they also replaced 4 culverts and did about 20 miles worth of laybacks. Next slide, please. This shows since the 1st of November, we have taken advantage of the dry weather, and these are all the areas of the counties where our motor grader operators had been involved in that layback activity. Next slide, please. This is areas within the county that we hauled aggregate to in the last couple months. Very limited because of the dryness of the weather. Most of this was just for some repair work that we had done or something like that. It said we hauled 1,005 ton of rock. That was just stockpile locations for projects this summer, most of that. Next slide, please. That's the end of the slides. Our sign traffic control repaired to replace 225 signs and posts, set barricades for road closures and work crews, and they've also completed the yearly sign inspection. Our plans, which we have ongoing, are to construct an entrance to the Radio Tower Road south of Brookville as soon as all the permits are in line and in place. We have been stockpiling material for the 2022 projects, and we're continuing our winter tree work. And we are stockpiling to upgrade Thatcher Road from Ohio Street to Crystal Springs, from earth to gravel road. And the 2022 budget's pretty much in line.
All right, any questions? Darren?
No. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Item number
3 is County Administrator's update with Philip Smith Haynes, County Administrator.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Just a few items for today. First off, we have received a letter to the auditor, which I gave to Linda to include in your packets. You know, auditing standards change over time, and this is a new requirement that the auditor is complying with. You have not seen this letter before, but at the beginning of the audit process, they are now required to send a letter to those charged with governance, which of course is the Board of County Commissioners, identifying risks for material misstatements of the financial statements. So Randy wanted me to make sure and clarify this is not anything they found. This is a disclosure of potential risks. So it's just really informational for the commissioners as the body charged with governance. And Randy's contact information is included if you had any questions. He has completed his on-site work now, is doing office work, and we should have the audit completed later this month. So this is just his disclosure as required under this new set of standards. The second item was I wanted to give you a legislative update. We were supposed to have gone to Topeka last Thursday for Salina at the State House, organized by the Saline Area Chamber of Commerce. Thursday was turnaround day, which is the day that all of the bills have to advance out of their non-exempt committees in their house of origin, or else they are dead for the year. And the legislature got their work done a little bit early, so they actually adjourned and were not there on Thursday. So we ended up just having a meeting here in town with 3 of our local legislative delegation. Talked about all the same things that we've been talking to them about around housing and childcare and the various community needs. So the only real legislative update that I have for you is that the bill on motor vehicle fees for treasurers' vehicle offices did pass out of the House of Representatives prior to turnaround. So that is now over to the Senate. Third, I wanted to follow up on our special meeting from last Wednesday. The commission approved the submission of a grant on behalf of K-State Salina and Kansas Wesleyan University. As you know, those were due yesterday, and I'm happy to report that that grant was successfully submitted at 1:35 p.m. I received a confirmation email that the Department of Commerce received that, and I passed that along to Dr. Starkey and Dr. Thompson. I will be out of the office the bulk of this week. I am journeying up to South Dakota this afternoon with the sheriff to review our precast jail cells at a plant in South Dakota, and then I will be flying from there down to Arizona to meet up with Community Corrections Director Annie Grievous and talk about fines and fees for a couple of days. So I will have my cell phone and my laptop with me if you need me, but if you need anything specific, it might be easier to get a hold of Hannah. And last but not least, wanted to alert the commissioners that we received notice yesterday that the Kansas County Commissioners Association annual conference will be in Saline County this year. That will be April 26th through 28th at the Hilton Garden Inn in South Salina. So we certainly are excited to welcome Kansas County Commissioners from around the state and hope that you will all mark your calendars and be able to make an appearance during that time. That's all I had for today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And that is April 26th and 28th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's just right around the corner.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
One of my comments, once we get into the commissioners' comments, actually could come right now as a question regarding the Kansas State and Kansas Wesleyan University grant that we processed forward for them. My question is, with a grant, there has to be an administrator of the grant, I would assume. And I assume in this case, that administrator is going to be the county. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So when it comes to a mistake or a time spent, that comes back on the county, right?
Yes, and so as a consequence of that, had a discussion with the universities, and they have included in their proposal a little bit of funding for the county to do that grant administration piece, because you're right.
I'm pleased to hear that.
Yes.
For certain. I also have heard through other entities that there is $100 million available, of which they had applications for $2 billion.
Yeah, I mean, we knew going into it that it was, there would be a lot of interest. Part of our legislative luncheon last Thursday, I hadn't heard the 2 billion number yet on base, but that doesn't surprise me. Senator Clays, who is on the Spark task force, did say last Thursday that they had 6 billion in requests for the 700 million that they have in that other process. So, yeah, it's definitely competitive.
Any other questions of the administrator? If not, we'll go to item number 4.
Item 4, yes. Commissioners' comments.
My comments regarding or surrounding the jail, but about 5 years ago, we undertook the process of examining the Expo Center. It took us 4 years to get to the bottom of that, about thereabouts, and we're in the process now of going forward. My point is, we're only 20 months away from vacating the jail or something along that, yet we haven't really, the whole group of us haven't really done anything or had anything to do. I'm not certain. My real question is, who owns the jail? I know that what I've heard is that the county owns part of it, the city owns a part of it. I don't know what part of the building we own or don't own. I would just like some clarification on those types of things, where we're going to go. How much does the city actually own, or do they own any of it? Is it just leased? Those are things that I would like to know, and I don't know. And also, I've heard it's been said that we're looking at moving, the health department was a possibility of moving into that building. And my thought there is, if we sold the public on the idea that the renovations that needed to be done over at the jail, they were too tough to make, with plumbing issues and electrical and so on and so forth. And with that in mind, I would go, well, gosh, why are we going to put the health department over there? And I don't know if that's even further down the road than the first part. But the first part is what I would really like to know. Who owns what? And what can we do?
We just so happen to have our monthly jail update next Tuesday, so I will include answers to those in that.
Great.
Any other comments? Item number 5.
Announcements.
I guess I'll announce, since our last televised meeting, I had a SCEDO meeting, a Chamber of Commerce meeting, a Senior Service Advisory meeting. And the one thing that stands out was the Chamber, who is partnered with Blue Cross and Blue Shield to make health insurance available for all state chamber associates. Quite a large pool of people, and they're looking to see if they can't reduce health care through larger numbers. So it's quite an undertaking, and it should not only help health care of the workers and owners, but also increase the size of chamber members. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we have an executive session.
Yes, sir. Staff would request that the commission recess to executive session under the non-elected personnel exception to the Kansas Open Meetings Act to discuss a department head performance evaluation for 10 minutes and reconvene in this room at 10:40 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we move into executive session for non-elected personnel and reconvene. What'd you say, 10?
10,
You said 10 minutes?
10:40 is what I...
10:40. I ready to call for the vote? I forgot where I was at. Thank you. Having me a moment here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, it's 10:40 and we return to regular session. No action was taken. Any other words of wisdom or comments or announcements before we adjourn? I'd entertain a motion then.
So moved.
Second.
Moving to second, we adjourn this meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries.